We're just days away from one of the most important elections of our lives.
President Trump crisscrosses the country as we go down to the wire to the midterms.
Democrats are openly encouraging millions of illegal aliens to break our laws. Republicans believe we must defend our borders. A Republican Congress means more jobs and less crime. A Democrat Congress means more crime and less jobs. Very simple, right?
Republicans are all, look, the economy's so good. Where do you think that started?
We have to protect Florida's future. We need to protect the economic momentum. You got to have good leadership.
Under President Trump's leadership, jobs are back. Confidence is back. America is back, and we're just getting started.
If crowds mean anything, we're going to have a great Tuesday. That's for sure.
Savored every minute.
That's right. And if we're counting by hours, we're now 2 days and 13 hours from the polls closing.
The final countdown is on.
We've got a handy-dandy countdown clock at Fox Square just behind us out there.
I looked at it right before the show started.
That's how you got the timing. By the way, Stephen Miner tweeted me today, one of our viewers, who said there's a lot of hoopla around the election. We're going to be talking about all of these big issues, the economy, healthcare, immigration. He said, don't forget our service members serving today on foreign soil. Serving and in some cases dying for us. We never want to forget our service members, so thanks for reminding me.
Yeah, we had a U.S. soldier yesterday killed in Afghanistan, so it's always good to remember what they're doing and sacrificing, so we have the right to vote on Tuesday.
Awesome. And Katie, welcome.
Yeah, it's good to be here again. Thank you.
So the president was yesterday in Montana and Florida. We know that he will be barnstorming all the way through the end. Today he's going to be in Georgia and Tennessee. Tomorrow, Ohio, on the day before Election Day, Ohio, Indiana, and Missouri.
And that's a second stop to Indiana. Remember, he was just there on Friday. He's hitting these battlegrounds where there are some big Senate battles.
Yeah, he's swinging back through a number of states on Monday. He will probably watch the election results come in from the White House on Tuesday. Final big push. The president vowed over the summer to be on the campaign trail as much as possible. He has done that. He has done that and more. So the candidates are ready to put in their final arguments, and the president has been backing them all the way.
That's right. Promises made, promises kept, including campaigning all the way through the end. This was the president yesterday in Montana and Pensacola, Florida. Listen.
We're just days away from one of the most important elections of our lives. Crying Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, the legendary genius Maxine Waters, if they take power, they will try to wipe away all that we've done. Democrats want to invite caravan after caravan of illegal aliens to flood into your communities. Republicans believe we must defend our borders. Democrats are openly encouraging millions of illegal aliens to break our laws. America now has the best economy in the history of our country. Can you believe this? A vote for Republicans is a vote to protect your families, to keep America's economic boom going. A Republican Congress means more jobs and less crime. A Democrat Congress means more crime and less jobs. Every day it's promises made, promises kept. If crowds mean anything, we're going to have a great Tuesday. That's for sure.
You have to wonder if there's going to be a late surge for Republicans. This is something we saw in 2016. I'm not saying we know for sure it's going to be a repeat, but a lot of the polls heading into the final weekend of 2016 suggested it was neck and neck, as it is now in a lot of these Senate battles. It was in the presidential race. And then the president was doing those rallies. He had real momentum, and that's what really propelled him in states like Wisconsin, Florida, where he was yesterday as well. That late surge that a lot of the pollsters missed.
That's right.
Yeah, well, now we have a new poll out this morning from ABC News and the Washington Post showing that 65% say that the economy has been good or excellent under President Trump. The last time we had optimism this high was January 2001, a long time ago. And Democrats are saying now that they may be fighting this economy.
That's right. No, and you look at the inside that poll as well, inside the generic ballot, Ed, to your point. In August, the gap between Democrats and Republicans, Democrats had a 14-point lead. The next month it was down to 11. Now it's down to 7. You can almost track that from Kavanaugh to the caravan to the economy. And these economic numbers are critically important. 71% of registered voters say the economy is good or excellent. If you're the party in power, that should be good.
And if you're the party not in power trying to take the House, the Democrats, do you want this headline from the Associated Press that's supposed to be down the middle? Democrats fight a vibrant economy in bid for the House. So A, the headline is saying the economy under the president is vibrant, and B, the Democrats are fighting that good economy. That's not where you want to be swimming, because historically it's bad, pardon me, for a new president. The first midterms of a new president, Democrat or Republican, presidents talked about this on the trail, you typically lose a lot of seats.
Yeah, and if we drill down on those economic numbers in the House races, which of course the Republicans are trying to keep the House, Democrats want to take back that majority, put Nancy Pelosi back in charge. Republicans view the economy as positive by 54%, Democrats as 40%. From August, that is up significantly from 49% for Republicans.
That's right.
And 42%.
So if you think the economy is going well, you're more likely to vote for Republicans now, even more so than you were before. And those, I don't know how you how you fight the economy. To get back to that headline, you can't really fight an economy. You can really just counter message or try to use talking points.
Maybe they're fighting the narrative.
Suddenly the Democrats are now all concerned about debt and deficit. The big spenders in Washington, our debt and deficit's going to be out of control. And then they always try to go back to health care costs, where Obamacare was never good for them, and it's not clear they have a more viable option other than government-run health care.
Yeah.
So they run into a lot of roadblocks when you're trying to run against a economy that's growing like gangbusters.
And the president has been making the argument, look, if you want to preserve the economic freedom that you have seen under my presidency, I am on the ballot.
Yes.
You know, when you're voting for Republicans, think about the policies that we want to put in place through an overall Republican agenda. If Democrats are in charge of the House, that agenda will come to a stop.
Exactly. And when we talk about narratives, though, that are set by the mainstream media, we talked about the AP headline that seemed quite fair to say, look, this is a vibrant economy right now. Look at the way the New York Times and the Washington Post are framing this big midterm election. They have similar headlines. Interesting. New York Times, a nation in turmoil prepares to deliver a verdict on Trump. The Washington Post, voters set to render fresh verdict on Trump. So two things strike me. One, in the New York Times headline, a nation in turmoil. Is there division? Sure. But as we just pointed out, even the AP is saying we have a vibrant economy. That's not turmoil.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good deal, number one. And number two, both of these newspapers, the mainstream media, use the same word to talk about the president. Verdict. Verdict for Trump, as if it's sort of a criminal
deal. Here it is. Real big, too. Nice and bold right here.
Why would
voters
they choose
to render? You know why? Because they've been putting him on trial since the beginning of his presidency. Think about the context of that. They want the voters to render a verdict that the fake news media hasn't been able to render for them. And they're hoping that this blue wave that's now blue ripple, that could be even a red wall, will indict this president in the way they haven't been able to.
Well, if you look at the word turmoil, it's so dramatic, right? But if you get, I think this is an indictment again of the media bubble, with all due respect, that New York and Washington, D.C. live in. If you go outside of these places and you talk to people, as Fox and Friends talks to people in these diners for breakfast with friends, people actually get along pretty well, and they don't necessarily allow their politics to always define their conversation.
But
they're voting on the economy. They're voting on things that matter to them. They don't believe that the country's in turmoil, and based on the polling we just went through, they think the economy's doing pretty well.
Well, to your point, but if you tell people the nation is in turmoil, what do? You punish the party in power. Turmoil. We've got to have change, right? And interesting, because Laura Trump was on last night, Justice with Judge Jeanine, and so the media largely wants to just say, we believe there's turmoil. Let's actually talk to some of the people out in the country like Laura Trump has been doing. Here's what she says about Republican enthusiasm.
One of the only differences I'm seeing is that the president's name is not directly on the ballot. But people, I think, understand that it is equally as important, if you voted for him in 2016, to get out and vote in the midterms for Republicans. I'm telling you, the turnout everywhere, the enthusiasm among women, and this is something that the Democrats always tout, that they have the women's vote. Women, after they saw what happened to Brett Kavanaugh, are ready to vote for Republicans. I feel really good about things going into Tuesday. The enthusiasm is there.
Yeah.
You know, I don't normally agree with Joe Biden. I thought those are great points that you raised. He had a rally. I don't think you can call it a rally. You can call it a small gathering in Ohio a few hundred people for the former vice president. He said this. He said, the very character of our country is on the ballot on Tuesday. I think Democrats feel that way. I think Republicans feel that way. Trump supporters feel like the soul, the culture, the country, the social fabric is at stake, that the resistance, that the mobs, that the left, the gridlock, the caravans are the future if they don't hold the line. And I think, so it's not just about the economy in your pocketbook. A lot of people are voting their gut in this election cycle, and they're still with the president.
Yeah, and issues like Lara Trump brought up, Brett Kavanaugh, you know, these issues of the caravan coming over, law and order, which is something that President Trump has been touting on the campaign trail, and the issue of, you know, do you really want to be character assassinated by the other side if you happen to disagree with them? And I think Americans are pretty sick of being called racist, misogynistic, simply because they disagree with leftist policies.
And then there's this. Charlie Kirk, the young conservative, had a tweet saying 2 years ago this weekend, the prediction model said there was a 98% chance that Hillary Clinton would be elected the next president. Similar prediction models this weekend are saying an 86% chance that Democrats are taking the House. So what do you think? Are we going to have a repeat of what we saw in 2016 where the mainstream media and others are shocked by the results of Democrats? Friends at FoxNews.com.
All right, we'll hear from you. Send us some of your thoughts and your comments. Turning now to your headlines, an American hero was killed in action yesterday. He's been identified as Utah mayor and father of 7 National Guardsmen's Major Brett Taylor lost his life in a reported insider attack in Afghanistan.
There's just really no words to express the loss we feel. The impact he has on the city is so great. It's going to be really hard without him.
The North Ogden mayor took a leave of absence to serve on his 4th deployment. He leaves behind his wife, Jenny, and 7 young children. A GoFundMe account for the family has raised more than $54,000 of $250,000 as a goal.
People need to log on there.
Yeah.
I'm going to log on after the show.
Lawmakers finding no evidence of sexual misconduct allegations against Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. The Senate Judiciary Committee releasing its 414-page report last night. The committee still investigating retired FBI agent Monica McLean, who is a friend of Kavanaugh accuser Dr. Christine Ford. The report says she urged a witness to change her statement to support Dr. Ford's claim.
Wow, still nothing. All right, and your headlines.
And the midterms are here as well, just 2 days away. Our next guest breaks down the 4 key Senate battles you should be watching come election night right here on the Fox News Channel. That is next.
And Speaker Pelosi, not so fast. Why a member of her own party leadership is no sure thing, even if Democrats win the House.
I got the perfect thing to kick it off with. A little late night neon light with some Dixie Jam.
2 days until the midterms and all eyes on a handful of big races that could change the balance of power in the Senate. Joining us to break down the key races to watch, GOP strategist and pollster John Thomas. Good morning.
Morning.
So we got a lot to get through. We're going to get to the House and the gubernatorial battles later. But let's start with Texas because we heard so much hype. If you want to talk about the so-called blue wave, Beto O'Rourke is raising so much money, I think over $70 million. Ted Cruz is on the ropes. Then the president goes to Texas, has a big rally. Things have changed.
Okay, you hit it on the head. Hype is exactly the way to describe this. Beto has been overhyped by the liberal media that fell in love with the idea that Texas could for once turn blue. It ain't going to happen. It was never in play. If you look at the polling averages for the last 3 months, it has never been less than 4-point spread. And I think that's even being generous to the Democrat in this race.
And Cruz has been extending the lead.
Exactly. I mean, look, what is all this money that Beto's raised? And it is incredible that he's raised records amount. What it means is the race will be a couple points tighter than it normally should be. But this race is not in play. It's just amazing that the media has fallen in love with a candidate who has been able to convince small donors that he's viable.
And some Democrats are mad that he's sitting on all that money when it could go to a state like Indiana. You got Joe Donnelly. He voted no on Kavanaugh, for example, even though he's now trying to say, look, I vote with President Trump a lot. Mike Braun, we had him on the show yesterday, has run a pretty good campaign. Where does it stand?
Yeah,
It's all about who's surging in the home stretch. And for a while, Mike Braun was doing all right. The no vote from Donnelly really played to Braun's favor because Kavanaugh's very popular in that state. But look, national dynamics are pulling Braun down a little bit. We saw going in last weekend, pretty much all GOP candidates have dropped a couple points. So Donnelly is ahead today. But let's not forget, these are
about a point.
Yeah,
so,
but
right?
these are margin of error differences.
Right.
Okay, let's focus on margin of error means it could go either way. So what this race is going to come down to is, number one, does President Trump tick up a point or two nationally in the next couple of days, which is absolutely possible? And then secondly, it's turnout.
Sure.
Can they turn out their bases? And look, President Trump is popular in this state.
And does the president juice turnout? He was in Indiana on Friday, another big rally in Indiana. Tomorrow it's the home state of Vice President Mike Pence. Does that push Braun over the top? We're going to watch closely.
Well, and that's absolutely right. I mean, if you look at 2016 when Trump made that famous swing in the home stretch through all those states, Trump knows how to turn out his base.
Late momentum. He may need it in Missouri as well. Claire McCaskill, now, every 6 years it seems like she's in tough shape and then pulls it out. Will it be different this time with Josh Hawley?
We'll see. I mean, there was a poll that came out this morning that showed McCaskill up by 1. It's a tough question. Look, Trump is popular in that state. Again, it's about who's going to turn out their base. If we just cover these economic numbers this morning, that's probably going to give a boost to Josh. We'll see. It's coming down to the wire, but it's all about turning out your base at this point.
If you're an incumbent and you're only up 1 point 2 days before the midterm,
it's very troubling.
You're in bad shape.
It's troubling. And Claire McCaskill's had a couple mistakes in the home stretch where her staffers have leaked that she might be more liberal than she lets herself on to be, and that's out of touch with the state.
She went after so-called crazy Democrats. I'm not a crazy Democrat, and the left has been mad.
That's right. So you're right. These are tight races. We'll be watching on election night. But if we're talking about the economy on election night, that bodes well for Josh.
All right, that's how we started the show. You're right, the Trump economy. Florida. This is a big one because, again, you have a Democratic incumbent in trouble. But we should point out that Rick Scott has had to pour in a lot of his own money in the final days to try to keep this close.
Yeah, again, a margin of error race. I mean, it's a nail-biter. If you want to look at Florida, it is a classic toss-up state. But what I will tell you is this is one of those things where polling is not measuring the Trump bump. Trump was there rallying yesterday. He can motivate his base, and that's what this is about, is turning out your base. And so goes Rick Scott and Bill Nelson, so goes the governor's race.
Right. So quickly, I've got about 15 seconds. DeSantis as well as Gillum, the Democrat. We're going to get to that later in the show. But real quick, how do these tie together? Because these are two big battles in the ultimate battleground.
Oh, they're hugely important. Well, Gillum, if he can turn out record numbers with African-American turnout, that, in fact, could flip this Senate race, just like...
Could have an impact in both races.
It could. But really, I think if Trump brings out his Trump coalition, both of these races go to the Republicans.
John Thomas, we're going to be with you all morning. We're going to do the gubernatorial races, the House races as well. Thanks for teeing it up. All right, Democrats reportedly planning investigation after investigation of the president if they win back the House on Tuesday. Andy McCarthy points out that could do more harm than good. He's here live next. And could it be a new low for SNL? The sketch show now mocking an ex-Navy SEAL who was wounded in Afghanistan.
Dan Crenshaw. You may be surprised to hear he's a congressional candidate from Texas. I'm sorry, I know he lost his eye in war or whatever.
Welcome back. It's time for some quick headlines. A Republican candidate for Senate is demanding an FBI investigation over dirty campaign tricks. Josh Hawley says this mailer falsely accuses him of opposing gun rights. Democratic incumbent Claire McCaskill has denied any involvement. The two are neck and neck in the polls. And North Dakota Democrats are under fire also for trying to discourage hunters from voting. In this ad, the state party is telling hunters who vote they could lose their out-of-state hunting licenses, which is not true. Democratic incumbent Heidi Heitkamp is in a tight race there against Republican Congressman Kevin Cramer. And
sensing a little desperation in both cases there, Katie.
Indeed.
Thank you. All right, well, it's the final days before midterms, and Democrats are pledging to launch more probes if they take control of the House of Representatives. The top Democrat on the House Oversight Committee, Congressman Elijah Cummings, telling the New York Times this, and I quote, "We want to look at what is happening under this administration because all of us can agree this is not normal," according to them. But won't this do more harm, or couldn't it do more harm than good? Here to weigh in, Fox News contributor and former U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, Andrew McCarthy. Andy, thanks very much for joining us this morning. Jerry Nadler would also become the chairman of the Judiciary Committee. Dems are pledging investigations, but it does come with risk. What do you see happening if they were to win the House of Representatives?
Well, you know, the real question, Pete, is does the United States, do the people really want 2 years of investigations of President Trump, his personal businesses, his past, and his administration? I tend to think they don't, especially after we've had 2 years of this collusion investigation. It seems to be a dry hole. Certainly if there was something there, we'd have heard about it by now. So I think there's a little bit of fatigue that sets in. The Democratic base wants these investigations, so they will push their people in Congress to have them. But if the broader public doesn't want them and they don't hit pay dirt, it could be very good for President Trump going into 2020, even though it'll be misery getting there.
Not to mention you have to make a trade-off. If you're not reviewing other bills in your committee and attempting to pass them, you're spending it all on investigations, it's hard to argue you've done anything substantive with your time in the House.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Pete. And in the meantime, in the Senate, if they're not getting legislation from the House, and you can expect that the two chambers would be at loggerheads if the Democrats had the House and the Republicans had the Senate, at least the Senate can kind of assembly line confirm President Trump's judicial nominees and his nominees to these important government administrative agencies.
Could a guy like Adam Schiff, though, if he gets the gavel, resist going further on the resistance?
Well, he could, but, you know, then they have the problem with their base. Their base badly wants these investigations done, and I think this is the problem you see in the Democratic Party. When we had this dynamic the last time, say in 1996, it turned out to be very good for President Clinton to be able to run against the Republican House. But because cooler heads prevailed in the Republican coalition and the Democratic coalition, we actually got some good legislation like welfare reform out of it. Now, I think the Democratic base has drifted very far to the left. It'll be very hard for them to work with the president.
Yeah, not a lot of space for cooler heads right about now. It's true. Well, you wrote an op-ed recently in National Review because the president had floated the idea that birthright citizenship might not be something automatically afforded by the 14th Amendment. Now, you argued in your op-ed that it could be, and let's read the 14th Amendment. Our viewers understand what this issue is about. It said all persons born or naturalized in the United States are subject to the jurisdiction thereof, are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. So do you feel like the president has a constitutional basis for changing something like birthright citizenship?
Pete, I don't think he has the lawful basis to do it by executive order, but I don't think the 14th Amendment was intended or did deprive Congress of their power to define the conditions of citizenship and the qualifications for it. The big debate is over what does this word jurisdiction mean. A lot of my friends say that jurisdiction simply means control over everyone. In other words, you're in our country, you're subject to our laws. I think clearly that isn't what it means. During the debates over the amendment, what they talked about, and the Supreme Court actually quoted this about 18 years after the 14th Amendment was adopted, they talked about complete jurisdiction as in the sense of owing allegiance. And to give an example, we know if two Americans are vacationing in Europe and the wife has a baby while they're in France, that baby is an American citizen. So we don't follow the idea throughout our law that a person is subject to the soil wherever he's born. You do have this idea of citizenship allegiance.
But you believe that Congress has to answer that question and not necessarily through executive action.
I do, and I think it may ultimately be that you'd have to have another amendment to the Constitution. Pete, it's funny, we got the 14th Amendment because there was a lot of confusion about what Congress was allowed to do under the 13th Amendment.
Sure. Good stuff. Andy McCarthy, thank you for your time. We appreciate it this morning.
Thanks, Pete.
You got it. All right, President Trump rallying for the Republican candidate for governor in Florida.
Ron DeSantis, I've known him a long time, and he'll keep your jobs going way up. He'll keep your taxes going way down.
Our own Griff Jenkins talked to DeSantis as the president was speaking to the crowd. He joins us live with that next. And an intern for his Democratic opponent hurling chocolate milk at college Republicans.
Don't pour your coffee on me.
You, I will.
What
Do you understand that fascism is here?
Whoa, yeah, maybe. The meltdown now landing her in trouble with the law.
We have to protect Florida's future. We need to protect the economic momentum. Are we going to build off the success Florida's had, or are we going to put a far-left Bernie Sanders, anti-law enforcement, tax-raising radical in the governor's mansion? I don't think so.
Gillum will tax and regulate your jobs into oblivion. Pledged his support to end all borders. When you have people camping out on your front lawn, remember Gillum.
Republican candidate Ron DeSantis is in a tight race for Florida governor. He spoke exclusively with our Griff Jenkins, who joins us live in Pensacola, Florida. Griff, good morning.
Good morning, guys. You know, the president made his second visit to Florida here at the Pensacola airport yesterday and drew more than 3,000 people. It was packed. He brought out all the stars. Not only was it DeSantis, he brought out Governor Scott as well as Vice President Pence, Evander Holyfield, and Florida State University's legendary Bobby Bowden. But really what was on display was this most closely watched governor's race between Tallahassee Mayor Andrew Gillum and Congressman Ron DeSantis. It really demonstrates the two directions the parties are going. Gillum, a progressive, Medicare for all, and of course DeSantis on board with the Trump agenda. Now, you've got Gillum leading by just over 2.5%, but that's certainly a narrow lead in a state where anything can happen. So we caught up with Ron DeSantis and asked him about that narrow lead, as well as what he wants to do when it comes to the top issue voters told me last night, immigration. Take a listen.
I feel very good about the turnout. You know, the polling depends on how you view the turnout. And if you think it's a Democrat wave, well, that's going to be a better poll. This is not a Democrat wave. This is a real serious uptick in Republican turnout, and that's a huge deal, and I think that's going to power us to victory. We will absolutely be on the side of hardworking taxpayers in Florida. I think if we can stop illegal immigration, that's good for the rule of law, good for taxpayers. It's also good for our blue-collar workers because they'll end up seeing higher wages.
I also asked Congressman DeSantis about how he would possibly try and keep the Governor Scott economy rolling, and he said it's all about taxes, and that, of course, also on the minds of the voters here. We'll find out if the Trump bump will apply here in the next 2 days, because President Trump won by 1%, 49 to 48 in 2016. A lot on the line here in the Sunshine State, guys.
All right. Griff, welcome home, by the way.
Griff.
Some outstanding reporting for us.
True.
Indeed. All right, turning now to your headlines. U.S. troops are protecting our southern border, laying barbed wire to keep illegal immigrants out.
I noticed all that beautiful barbed wire going up. Barbed wire used properly can be a beautiful sight.
The president deployed nearly 1,000 service members to the border, but vows up to 15,000 to stop multiple migrant caravans. Organizers of the group are blasting Mexican officials for directing them through a so-called route of death that is notorious for kidnapping attempts. Meanwhile, Nancy Pelosi may want to take a step back. A fellow Democrat is warning that her being speaker is not a sure thing if Democrats win back the House.
If the Democrats win and win big, there's probably a much greater chance that she will be the speaker. We'd have to have a lot of votes to spare in order, I think, for her to win that seat.
Democratic Congressman Tim Ryan, Steny Hoyer, and Jim Clyburn are all rumored to be potential candidates for Speaker. And Saturday Night Live is mocking a war hero running for Congress.
Dan Crenshaw. You may be surprised to hear he's a congressional candidate from Texas. I'm sorry, I know he lost his eye in war or whatever.
What?
Former Navy SEAL Dan Crenshaw lost his right eye after he was hit by an IED blast in Afghanistan. Crenshaw, who has appeared on Fox and Friends multiple times, is running for Congress as a Republican in Texas.
Oh, boy.
And the Republican candidate for U.S. Senate in Arizona is showing her American pride. She's at ASU. She's at ASU. It's debatable. Just kidding. Oh. That is Martha McSally singing the national anthem at the Arizona State-Utah game. Her opponent, Democrat Kristen Sinema, took part in the coin toss at the game. And those are your headlines.
Wait, you went to the U of A?
I went to the University of Arizona. I think in Tucson. And I think our Rick Wright, who is here for weather, went to ASU. So we have a real rivalry going on.
You were rolling your eyes over there. I saw.
I was. We're both Northern Arizona people, though.
That's true.
So if you know Arizona at all, those are like three distinct things: Northern Arizona, ASU,
and very big distinction between ASU and U of A as well.
Yes, very much.
Go
so.
Wildcats!
All right, guys. So everybody wondering what's going to happen on Tuesday. We got to get through today first. Sometime there's going to be some weather that pops up in there. There you go. Oh, it popped up, but I couldn't pop up along with it. We'll take this for now. Big storm moving across the central part of the country right now. That is going to continue to pull off towards the east. That big storm that moved in yesterday around the mid-Atlantic northeast, that's gone. Behind it, much cooler air. These are those temperatures. You can see that cooler air kind of settled in there. 41 in Raleigh, 45 in Atlanta. It feels like fall. We're starting to get a little bit of fall color settled in across parts of the south as well. Here's what Tuesday looks like. Big storm moving through. It's going to be really, really windy and really rainy, especially across parts of the Ohio Valley. So it won't be for anybody an all-day washout, but there will be rain from time to time. So go to your local weather, pick your favorite app, whatever it is, and decide what time of day it will be best, where the weather will be helpful for you to get out there. You can still vote.
Rick, America didn't get to watch you do the weather, but I did. We did.
Amazing job.
Thank you very much.
All right.
I tried.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Meanwhile, polls show President Trump still very popular in upstate New York. That's where Republican Congresswoman Claudia Tenney is fighting to keep her seat. She joins us live next.
Plus, up on the program, we've got Kellyanne Conway. We've got the former acting ICE director, Thomas Homan, and Virginia Congressman Dave Brat, all here live coming up.
Some quick headlines. The man Alec Baldwin is accused of punching in the face over a parking spot is speaking out. The victim says he's still sore, but will be okay. Baldwin denies the allegations. And Jimmy Buffett ramping up support for Democrats down in Florida. The singer remixing his hit song Come Monday to take a shot, yes, at the president.
Come Tuesday, things will change. Come Tuesday, we're making a plan. It's been 2 insane years, time to really switch gears.
Okay, Buffett was at a free campaign concert for Florida Democrats, Andrew Gillum and Bill Nelson. I'm not sure if he carried the tune there, Katie, but there you go.
We'll see. Thank you, Ed. Well, unlike the liberal territory of New York City, polls show President Trump still popular in upstate New York, including the 22nd district, where he handily beat Hillary Clinton in 2016. And our next guest is betting her career on it. The latest poll in this toss-up race has incumbent GOP Congresswoman Claudia Tenney within a single-digit margin against Democratic Assemblyman Anthony Brindisi. Joining us now on a busy campaign morning, GOP Congresswoman Claudia Tenney. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Great to be on.
First, I want to start by saying we have invited your opponent to come on and discuss his state of the race. We have not heard back yet, but we want to start with you. This is a neck-and-neck race. Your district is representative of what's going on all around the country. Tell us about the final days of your campaign.
Yeah, we've been working really hard. Of course, yesterday was a tremendous honor to welcome Sarah Huckabee Sanders into the district. She was received really well, and it's just exciting to have a really strong woman come and support our campaign. I'm the first woman to represent this district. And interestingly enough, yesterday I stopped by in Lisle, New York, which is where the first women in New York State actually got the right to vote and exercised their right to vote, thanks to Republican Susan B. Anthony, who hails from New York State as well. So we're really excited about the race. We've got Donald Trump, our president, came to my hometown city, Utica, New York. The first time a sitting president has been in our district and in Utica in 70 years. We've brought Ivanka Trump has come in, Eric Trump, and now we've got Donald Trump Jr. coming in tomorrow. They are showing the love for our region and how much they care about the forgotten men and women in our district, and an outsider like me they've put in office, and hopefully will put us back in again, just like the president, an outsider who stood for people. I'm a working, own a small business owner. I have a 100 rating from National Federation of Independent Business, always have, even in my time in the State Assembly. And it's really important that we bring small business owners together. This has been an incredible 2 years for our small business community. For the first time in many, many years and decades, we've seen actually an increase. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, in spite of what the Democrats say, have been phenomenal for our small business community. 98% of the people who live and work in our district either work for or own a small business. So the increase in jobs, we now have more people working and more jobs open than we've had than we have people available for jobs. So it's been a great employee market, and wages are going up naturally and organically, which is the way it's supposed to go. And so unlike the rest of New York State, we are finally seeing a boom just because of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, rolling back unnecessary regulations, and it's just been an incredible 2 years, and we just can't afford to go back.
It seems like those crumbs that Nancy Pelosi has been talking about are working pretty well for New York's 22nd congressional district. We want to get to some polling now. The New York Times has you and your opponent, Brindisi, tied essentially at 46%. You talked about the economy. Is the economy at the top of the issues when you're talking to voters in your district?
Absolutely.
46%, 45%. You're down by 1% within the margin of error.
Right. The New York Times Siena live polling is also showing it a dead heat, but all of their models show that the undecideds are Republicans or Trump supporters, and that we know that those people are going to come home. They don't like answering polls. Everyone's pretty fatigued from polling right now, but I feel very confident. The only reason this race is close is because my opponent is getting more money from California billionaires like Tom Steyer, who wants to impeach the president, to Mayor Bloomberg, and he's running saying, oh, I'm not going to take money from PACs, but yet his entire campaign is run by super PACs controlled by Nancy Pelosi and these super wealthy billionaires from New York City and California, and they're literally trying to buy the race. It's a con job of epic proportions. My opponent has the most left-wing record in the state assembly, and that's all we have to go on. He has a lot of rhetoric trying to portray himself as a moderate, but he's not.
All right. Well, we are down to the wire. Good luck on Tuesday. We have invited your opponent to come on. We have not heard back. Thank you, Congresswoman Tenney, for coming on the program.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, an intern for Florida gubernatorial candidate Andrew Gillum now arrested after this.
Don't pour your coffee on me.
You, I will.
What
Do you understand that fascism is here?
Lawrence Jones says these attacks are nothing new from the left, and he joins us live next. And the midterms already smashing some serious records. We got those numbers as well. Up ahead.
Some quick headlines. The man, Alec Baldwin, is accused of punching in the face over a parking spot, is speaking out. The victim says he's still sore, but will be okay. Baldwin denies the allegations. And Jimmy Buffett ramping up support for Democrats down in Florida. The singer remixing his hit song Come Monday to take a shot, yes, at the president.
Come Tuesday, things will change. Come Tuesday, we're making her plan. It's been 2 insane years, time to really switch gears.
Okay, Buffett was at a free campaign concert for Florida Democrats, Andrew Gillum and Bill Nelson. I'm not sure if he carried the tune there, Katie, but there you go.
We'll see. Thank you, Ed. Well, unlike the liberal territory of New York City, polls show President Trump still popular in upstate New York, including the 22nd district, where he handily beat Hillary Clinton in 2016. And our next guest is betting her career on it. The latest poll in this toss-up race has incumbent GOP Congresswoman Claudia Tenney within a single-digit margin against Democratic Assemblyman Anthony Brindisi. Joining us now on a busy campaign morning, GOP Congresswoman Claudia Tenney. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Great to be on.
First, I want to start by saying we have invited your opponent to come on and discuss his state of the race. We have not heard back yet, but we want to start with you. This is a neck-and-neck race. Your district is representative of what's going on all around the country. Tell us about the final days of your campaign.
Yeah, we've been working really hard. Of course, yesterday was a tremendous honor to welcome Sarah Huckabee Sanders into the district. She was received really well, and it's just exciting to have a really strong woman come and support our campaign. I'm the first woman to represent this district. And interestingly enough, yesterday I stopped by in Lisle, New York, which is where the first women in New York State actually got the right to vote and exercised their right to vote thanks to Republican Susan B. Anthony, who hails from New York State as well. So we're really excited about the race. We've got Donald Trump, our president, came to my hometown city, Utica, New York. The first time a sitting president has been in our district and in Utica in 70 years. We've brought Ivanka Trump has come in, Eric Trump, and now we've got Donald Trump Jr. coming in tomorrow. They are showing the love for our region and how much they care about the forgotten men and women in our district, and an outsider like me they've put in office, and hopefully will put us back in again, just like the president, an outsider who stood for people. I'm a working, own a small business owner. I have a 100 rating from National Federation of Independent Business, always have, even in my time in the State Assembly. And it's really important that we bring small business owners together. This has been an incredible 2 years for our small business community. For the first time in many, many years and decades, we've seen actually an increase. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, in spite of what the Democrats say, have been phenomenal for our small business community. 98% of the people who live and work in our district either work for or own a small business. So the increase in jobs, we now have more people working and more jobs open than we've had than we have people available for jobs. So it's been a great employee market, and wages are going up naturally and organically, which is the way it's supposed to go. And so unlike the rest of New York State, we are finally seeing a boom just because of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, rolling back unnecessary regulations, and it's just been an incredible 2 years, and we just can't afford to go back.
It seems like those crumbs that Nancy Pelosi has been talking about are working pretty well for New York's 22nd congressional district. We want to get to some polling now. The New York Times has you and your opponent